record here on.
Hello, my name is Woodrow Starr, and we're doing some more leather work today. I think the name of the class is Beginning Leatherwork Part 2. Just a quick rundown of what we're going to look at. We'll do a couple of different things today. We're going to look at, we have two different kits that we're going to do our projects on today. One's a checkbook, and the other one is a magnetic money clip. What I want to show or demonstrate first is with the magnetic money clip, kind of going off of last week. What we did was the introduction to stamping leather. What we did was we just did basically a geometric design, nothing too fancy, basket weave, or there's all different kinds. So anyways, this is kind of going off of like last week. I'll just work over it real quick. So on our leather, we have a smooth side and a rough side. The smooth side will be the side that we're going to be working on. The rough side is what they call the fleshy side, or underneath, or the bottom of. When you're working with leather, you want to make sure your hands are clean. You want to wash them, try to keep from oil and things like that. It will transfer to the top of the leather, and it'll show up in the finished product. But as with anything else, practice, that's how we learn. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a little design on this. And what I like to do is to put some tape on the back of it, on the underside, the fleshy side of the leather. And what I use is painter's tape. So can't use too much, and I'll explain the use of that. But anyway, so put the soft side, smooth side down, and just put the tape over the top of the fleshy side, and then turn it over. Now what you can do, if you got some left on the ends, you can just fold it over, and then it's a little easier to manage, so you're not constantly sticking to the project here. Now, the reason that we use the tape is because anytime you're stamping or working on leather, what happens with the leather is that as you apply pressure to the top, and you're basically squishing the fiber down, it squishes it not just down but out. So every little spot you do, it pushes it out. So what the tape helps to do is to maintain the shape of the leather, and helps it not get like just all bowed out. Because if you did this without the tape or any kind of backing, you can use, I've seen people use book tape, the clear tape. We used masking tape last week, and it didn't work too well. I like the painter's tape because it holds it real well, but it comes off of the leather as well too. It comes off a lot easier. So again, it keeps it from bowing out. Also, it helps to keep the shape of the leather from getting wider or longer, because you're basically working on something that you've already cut out. So as you can see here, I've already got the shape of it, and then the holes are punched in there. And this is going to have to line up with the backing or the liner with the holes that are in there. So we want to make sure it stays that way. So what we do, we put the tape on there, and then we get a little bit of water. I like to use a water bottle. It's on my work table at home. So for the purposes of the class, we'll be using these little bowls of water with the sponge. So what we'll do is we'll get the leather wet. Just go over the top of it. We don't want to get it sopping wet, but you can see it changes color. It gets dark. You can see. And then what you're going to want to do is wait for the color to come back. It'll get a little bit lighter. It'll be a little cooler to the touch. And that way we're not working with something that's too wet. Because if you start working with it while it's too wet, then it gets real smushy, and then all kinds of bad things happen. So what we're going to want to do is, with a set of dividers, I like to measure this. If you look on this, we already have the holes punched out where we're going to do our lacing. We want to get a border around it that's about as even from the side, from the middle of the hole to the side. So we'll take our divider here. This is our divider. It's basically, it just looks like a compass, but it's just got two pointy ends on it instead of one with a pencil. So we'll take our divider and we'll set it to where it's going to be right between where that little stitch line there, where the stitching holes are, right, is going to be right in the middle between the edge and the border we're going to put on it. I'm going to get it a little wet again, just because it's drying out pretty fast. Some of this leather's been sitting in storage, so it's really, really dry. So we want to get some more water on it. As you can see, it turns a little darker color. Get it nice and wet. This is called casing the leather. I'm not too sure exactly what that means, but as far as I know, it means getting the leather ready to do the work. Any kind of stamping on it. And the kind of stamping I'm going to do on it today is going to be a basket stamp. It's usually pretty simple, nothing too major, but it's, and it goes pretty quick too. So what I'll do is, I got it nice and wet now, and you can start to feel it, and you can start to see the parts of it starting to come back to color. I'm just going to wait for this. I'll go into a little bit more what we're going to do here. The reason we're starting with the magnetic money clip, it's a little smaller. You don't have to. We're not going to spend too much time on the design and everything on it. The main thing we want to get to is we want to get the design stamped on it, and then we want to get the parts put together. It comes with this another little pouch in here. This is what we'll. It comes with thread and 2 needles, 2 sewing needles here. Now, they're not like the kind of sewing needles you would sew your clothes at home with, but they're sewing needles. And also comes with 2 magnets and 2 little steel plates. Now, these are a little hard to push apart. So what I like to do is I try to get like right in the middle of them and then twist them. And you can see as they twist, they can come apart. And there you go. Okay, so now, but you want to make sure that you have them and they got to be arranged in a certain way, because if you put them, because you want them to come together, and there's this way where they won't line up correctly. So what you're going to want to do is when you pull them apart, to make sure that they'll line up when they come together, and you can feel them once you start to push them together. They kind of push away from each other. So again, twist them apart, and you'll see how they line up. And it's pretty strong attraction. It'll have to be because it's going to go into leather. So if you want, you can either keep them apart now or put them back together and then try taking them apart again later. I'm just going to take them apart so I don't have to fight with them again. But I'm going to keep them orientated to where the direction in which they go together. And again, just a little bit further here. Once we get this put together, once we get the magnets put on there and we get put on the leather and then put on with the lining, what I wanted to demonstrate was what this comes with is the needle and a thread, as opposed to, say, like this checkbook kit comes with lace and a couple flat needles. What this is going to do, I'm going to show you how to saddle stitch. It's called, as you can see on the picture of the money clip, it's a stitch that goes around the edge of the project. Now, this is still drying, so there's a couple of different ways to do it. I brought some of these from home just to show you what can be used when you're doing a saddle stitch or stitching a kind of small project. They're held together with pressure, so you pull them apart and they come together. Now, what you would do, say you have your piece of leather and you put it in between there, it's going to hold it. Now, just for a little bit more pressure to hold it, you can tighten this up. And as you can see, this can go on your lap, or you could take some fasteners, C-clamps, clamp it to a surface that you're working on. So you can basically use both hands. There's a video, if you Google it, saddle stitching these are called stitching ponies. This one as well is just a little more complicated, but it's basically the same thing. There's a little block that goes in there. You put it in there and you twist it to the side, and it goes apart. And then you can put your project in there, and then you let it go, and then just tighten it up. Again, this has got one side you can clamp to the table. This one actually turns. So if you clamp this down, it's facing you, or if you want to put one under your leg, or if you want to sit on the side of it, it's pretty handy. If you tighten it up with this wing nut, that'll give it some more pressure holding your project. But not everyone has one of these. They're not the cheapest things to buy or make. So what I'm going to show today is how to do a saddle stitch without a stitching pony or a saddle, stitching saddle. Anyways, so this is getting pretty dry. You can see it's just little spots where it's a little dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to etch in this border. It goes around. And from here, I won't finish it on the camera, but just to give you an idea of what it's going to look like once we get started. So there's the border that I scratched in there with the divider. Now I'm going to take my awl along with just a small ruler. It's got a cork back, and the reason I like the cork back ones is because when you put it on your surface and you apply pressure to it, it doesn't slide. Well, it'll slide if you really push it, but it won't slide under just a little pressure. And that's what we're just going to apply it to. We're going to put it on the top of the leather, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw sort of a diagonal line in between the two border lines. Okay. I don't know how well that showed up, if you can see that on the camera or not, but
not really.
There's a little line that goes from one side to the other. And we're going to start with that. Let me see if I can make it a little bit darker here. I don't know if that showed up any.
It showed up better. So
the geometric design that I'm going to use is called a basket stamp. And it's just a little, it's got a little, once you start stamping with it in a geometric design, the design is supposed to look like is like basically like a basket weave. And it has two little arms, one on each side, and then a vertical line that goes through the middle. So what we're going to want to do is line up the arms on one side on the line that we just drew with the awl, and just put them right on the line. And you take your maul or your maul and hold it real still. And it's going to give you a little design that looks like that. Now what you're going to do with the next one is we start on one side of the line. Now we're going to go to the other and go down or up, however you want to look at it. But what we're going to do is we're going to overlap one of the little arms with one of the other little arms that are on there. Okay, and then still staying in line with what we have. I'm kind of blind. I like to put my cheaters on. And then we'll go back to the other side. And as you can see, I kind of, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but I kind of tilted it back and to the side to create a little, so it doesn't go over the outside of the border. You can see even though I tilted it, it's just a little bit went over the line, but not so much to where it's like, you can just tell. And the next thing we'll go over this with is what you call a camouflage stamp, and we'll go around the border with that. And what that'll do is that'll help cover up any little mistakes that we make going around the edge. I'm just going to put enough on here. I'm not going to finish the whole thing. Just enough to get a bit of a design on here so we can show you so it doesn't look too unfinished. And then we'll take a camouflage stamp, and that's this here little stamp. It's just like a half a moon with lines on it. And we'll go over the sides here. And as you're using the camouflage stamp, you can see the different parts of this round part I call the heel, and these here I call the toes. So I'll put the toes right on the line and stamp it, and then the next stamp over, I'll just overlap the two toes there, so it gives that sort of a design like that. And then I'll go all the way around the edge of this, around the border. Once this is complete, I usually don't use this until I got the whole thing basket stamped, and then I'll start to go around the border with this. So with that, I'm going to take the tape off, and actually I'm going to get a different one, and I'll show you once we get that. I'll let this dry. I'll get another piece here.
Are you guys all doing one? Are you guys doing one too?
So I'll show you the tape comes off the back. Fairly easy. It's not completely dry, but for the sake of time and instruction. We'll just move along with this. So we know that these two pieces, if you put them together, they'll go like this. So if you go like this, we'll put them on and align them onto that back part of the leather. Now what we'll do, we'll take what they call leather weld. You can also use contact cement. I think this stuff's been sitting too long too, but
You have 35 minutes.
yeah, I still got some other stuff I gotta go to too.
Oh.
So what we'll do is with the plate side down, magnet side up, we'll put some of the glue on here if it comes out. And just kind of rub it with your finger. You don't have to worry about it sticking to your hand. It's not like super glue. You can just rub it off. And this is just to hold it in place while we finish the rest of it. And you can put some on the back of this too. And just making sure that you got them on there pretty even from the ends and from the sides. So it looks like that. Now this is on the fleshy side, the side we had the tape on. Now what we'll do with the rest of this, we will just go around the edge. Just a light little bead there, nothing too major, and just smear it on. Now you can use a piece of plastic or a little brush, something, but I know using the finger works really well as well. So any excess you can put on the back of that. Now what you want to do is the lining that comes with it, there's a lighter, rougher side, and again the smooth side. We'll have the smooth side up, and you want to line up the holes as you lay it down. And you can move it around if you have to as you work it down on the sides. You start to see, I don't know, well, you can see that, but the holes, they line up. So again, it's not perfect. Take it apart. You can put more of this leather stuff on the ends, help hold it together. A little messy, but well, I typically don't want to be doing this on my stamping slab, but it just rubs off anyways. No big deal. It's not permanent like super glue. The main thing is not to get it on the surface like I just did. Here we go, line up the holes as evenly as you can. You can rub the excess off your fingers. Quite a mess it can make sometimes. Now, what you can use is called a modeling spoon. And what that does is you can push down around the edge of those magnets. It's not going to line up right, but it'll be close. Okay, so we got it pretty much stuck together. Now what we're going to do with the thread, we'll unwrap the thread. You'll have two ends. And what you do is you're going to attach a needle to both ends, one to each end. And the way that you're going to do it is some people I've seen work with the lace just through the eye, and then they pull it back, and then they just start using it like that with the saddle, with the stitching pony. Since we're not going to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to pull it down the length of the thread, about the length of the needle. Okay, maybe a little bit more. Okay, so if you can see what I've done there, this is the needle, this is the thread. Then what we're going to do is we're going to poke through on the end. This is the end of the thread, the lace that we're going to use. We're going to poke through it and give it just a little bit of a twist, and then poke through it again. And what this is going to do, it's going to lock the thread onto the needle. Just pull it down and pull it through the eye or down over the eye, and then pull it up to the needle, and it'll be locked on there. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side, the other needle. We'll take the thread, put it through the eye, pull it through about the length, maybe a little bit longer of the needle, and then we're going to poke it through part of the thread, give it a little twist, and then poke it through the thread again. And then you pull it through the eye, and then you pull it down over the end, and it'll lock itself on there. So now you'll have two needles, one on each end, and you will start. It doesn't really matter where you start, but you want to start with the finished side out. Put the needle through, and then put the other needle through the hole right next to it. And then you're going to even them up. Okay, so now what we're going to do here, you'll see there's two pieces of thread coming out of this end here. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to hold this piece down, the one that's to the right. I'm going to hold it down. I'm going to take the other needle, and I'm going to pass it through that hole that one was coming out of. I'm going to pull it out towards me. Then I'm going to go into the next hole and pull that out. Okay. Now you're gonna see the two pieces of thread, but now they're down. They're starting to move down. Now, the one that's to the right again, same thing. We'll hold that one down. We'll take the other needle, pass it through that hole that that last piece of thread just came out of towards me. Pull it through, then push it through the other side, the hole that's right next to it, and pull that through, and then pull that tight. And then you'll start to see it starts to, then you do it again. Just keep doing it. Hold the thread down, pull this through, push it through. And you start to see that it's starting to look like a saddle stitch, something that you can get using the stitching pony. It's basically the same thing. With the stitching pony, what you would be doing, basically, this is what it would look like. Is you would sit here and with your piece, with your project in the clamp, tighten it down. And like I said, you can clamp these or put some weight on the ends. And basically what you'd be doing here is you would put your needle through one side, pull it through, and then you'd put your needle through, your other needle through the hole that that just came out of. And then you would pull those tight. That's the traditional way of doing a saddle stitch. Same thing again. Now, actually, if you want to talk about traditional, what we would have done is we would have marked the holes on the leather with a wheel or something else that would have spaced out the stitch line. We would have basically marked out a stitch line. Then, say we did it with this, we would have just poked it into the leather and worked our way down, marking, just leaving little marks there. And then we would have took it's called a stitching awl. I didn't bring one with me, but it's all similar to this. And you would have had it in your clamp like this, and you would have seen the mark that you left. You take the stitching awl and you poke it through both pieces of leather, or how many pieces of leather you're working with. You would poke it through and then pull it out, creating a hole. Then you would use your two needles and then going back and forth and then working your way down. And this is the reason I wanted to use this little kit today, is because it's already got the holes in it and it wasn't lacing, it was a stitching project. So, you know, again, like I said, not everyone can afford those two things that I was just talking about, you know, getting a stitching awl or a marking wheel or anything like that. Doing it by hand like this, it makes it a lot easier, and it could, depending on your technique, go a little quicker. You know, so as you go down, whoops, you gotta be careful how you're pull your thread through. And then pushing it through there again. Oops. You know, as you go down a little bit further too, you can always stop if you're kind of worried about how tight it is. You can have, with both threads coming out of the same side, you can just kind of go back and forth and tugging on it, and that'll apply the tension through the thread. Go anywhere from like 4 to 6 holes, 4 to 6 stitches, and then do that, and then it'll leave that thing on there. So that's that. That's the stitching part I wanted to show you. The next thing I'm gonna go over real quick, I know I'm not gonna be able to show this on camera, is the reason I wanted to use the checkbook cover kit is what we're gonna do today. Last time we did just the basic stamping, getting the leather wet and putting a geometric design on it. What we're gonna do today is use a design that comes with the kit inside the instructions. It's called a floral design, or Sheridan is the pattern I like to, or the definition I like to use. But it's basically like a floral design, and what this involves is getting again, casing the leather, getting the leather wet, and now with the kit, what you do, it basically shows you what it should look like when you're done. But what this part is down here, this is going to be the design that you're gonna put on to the leather itself. Now, the way that you would do it is, again, like I showed you with the money clip, you would get the tape. Sorry, so wide. And I don't like to cooperate too well. Now you can put this down. There's no really lengthways on this. And again, like we did with the magnetic money clip on that smaller project, we'll get the entire back covered with the tape. And then we'll get the leather wet, or we'll case the leather, and then we'll let it dry. But again, it won't dry completely. It'll be dry enough to where it's not sopping wet, mushy. Because what we're going to do, once we get the leather to where we want it to be, once we get the leather to where it's prepared for the design we're going to put on it, we're going to trace the design on there. Now, if this was one that we were going to use again, what we would do is I have these little, it's a page protector cover, I guess you can get from Walmart or whatnot. But what I did here, you can see the design. I should have folded it a little bit better. I actually put the sheet in there, and I traced it with a fine magic marker. I can't find it right, but you can see. So I put that on there. Now the reason for that is because what I want to do is, once I get the leather wet, and I get this lined up to where I wanted to put it. As I start to trace the line on here with a stylus, this pattern, the paper is going to get wet from the leather, and it's going to end up ruining it, and you won't be able to finish it. So there's that, or you would just take some book tape, clear tape, and just put it over the back of the design. And then what you'll do, since that's covered with that tape, it won't ruin the paper. And if you got this right over, you can see the edge of this. You can just line it up with that. And once it's on there and it's wet, with your stylus, you can start tracing the lines. When you start tracing the lines, it'll leave indentations in the leather. Let's see if I can. Now this wouldn't be ideal because the leather's not wet, but just again for the sake of instruction. Taking your stylus and going around the ends. I don't know if you can see that real well, but you'll have put the outline of that design on there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then once you get the whole pattern, onto there, you will take a what's called as a swivel knife. Now this one comes with the kit that Tandy sells. It's an adjustable length. You can make it shorter or longer as you need. However, it's comfortable. And basically with the swivel knife, what you'll do is looking at the blade. This blade isn't the only type of blade there is for a swivel knife. This is basically what they call a straight blade. There's also an angled blade where it looks the same, except it'll be down at an angle. So as you're cutting, what you're going to want to do is when you get into that design, you'll start to cut into the leather and holding your knife at an angle. Whereas with the angled blade, that one is a little bit like for more little intricate corners where you have to turn your blade, because what you don't want to do is when you're cutting with your swivel knife, you don't want to tilt it to the side this way, because that'll cut underneath the leather. You will find it as you're starting to cut. Again, this is something that just takes time. One of the most important things to being able to cut with a swivel knife is sharpening the blade, keeping it really sharp. So I like to sharpen it before and after I use it. Use a jeweler's rouge, it's called. There's a green one as well as a white one. One of those things, I think. Or I have another one somewhere. Now the green one, it's real easy. You just get a little piece of scrap leather that you got laying around, and on the fleshy side, you just run it back and forth like a crayon. Get as much of it covered as you can. Put it back in this container. Then you can see what you want to do is you want to maintain the angle at which you're sharpening it. You don't want to roll it, because as you're rolling it, it'll dull that edge of your knife. So you want to go over it the same amount of times you do on both sides. So on this one, what I like to do is to hold it at that one angle, and then just pull it across and pick it up. And I'll do that like 10 times. Okay. And the more you do it, the shinier the tip of your knife will start to look. That means it's just basically it's polishing it as it's sharpening it, meaning it's just pulling it off the dull tip, and it's pulling the metal off of there. And then you'll start to see it on your sharpening pad. It'll start to look black, and that's that metal that's starting to come off of the tip of the blade. So then, again, you always want to maintain the same angle, pulling it across, and then lifting it straight up. And then going back on the other side. Maintaining that same angle, pulling it up. Okay. So with that, I'll give you a little demonstration. I didn't want to cut into that just yet. What it'll look like. As we draw, case this leather real quick. I'll just show you what it looks like. Now, I know that we're not going too much time, but let me see if I can. I'll try to put a little bit of a design on here. Using the stylus. I'll put it right underneath it. If I can get this on here, I'll be surprised. And you can see it's starting to pull that design off there. So again, I don't know if you can see it. There's just a little bit of a design that's impressed upon that. You'll take your swivel knife, and how you want to cut with your knife, you always want to pull towards yourself. You don't want to cut away from you. This way you can see where you're cutting as you're coming towards yourself, and you could maintain, to keep it from going this way or that way. So what we'll do here, I'm going to pull my mask off and put my glasses. Now this is like a brand new knife that probably needs to be sharpened a little bit more than what I just did. But you can see as you start to go around the edge, then it starts to cut in that design. Now, what this will do, which you can do too, I mean, if you're pretty, which I'm not, artistic about stuff, you can actually draw it freehand yourself. And then you can start to do the, this is just a practice. And then once you get to that point where you're ready to start doing your design, the tools that we have are, there's multiple different tools. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do as you look at your design on basically how it's supposed to look, you can see around the edges it's a little dark, and what that is, what that a result of is what they call beveling. So what you do is you get your beveler, and you should have a couple of them here. And what those look like, as the name suggests, is when you tap it on the leather, it produces a little beveled edge. So just to demonstrate that, and then just keeping your beveler inside of that line that you cut, just slowly going around. Now, as you're doing the beveling, like with the knife, you will kind of want to tip it up just a little bit, especially if you have like a edge, because if you keep it straight, there's always a chance you're going to pull it towards yourself, and that corner will dig into your leather. Whereas if you tip that corner up and pulling it towards yourself, you'll produce that bevel that goes around the design. And then the purpose of the bevel is to show that is to produce a like a 3D effect, to give it some depth. As you go around the edges of the whole design, then as you look at on the inside, there's different areas where they're beveled. So again, just going from patterns, looking at what they're supposed to look like, copying them, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how you learn. So what you'll do, the first thing, is to bevel the whole thing as much as you can. And then once you start looking at these other designs on here, what we're going to do, some of these are made with the actual swivel knife itself, pear shader, a mule foot they're called, and lines, camouflage tools, and a background stamp. So, I didn't, again, like I said, just because of how much time we don't have, looking at how we're going to do this, all I can do is show you just basically what each of the stamp looks like. We can start with what they call a shader or a pear shader. So here's one. The thumbnail. It's called a thumbnail. It should serve same purpose as a pear shader. And what this is used for is in these areas in the leaves. You put it in there at the angle that you hit it at, and as you go around the sides, the angle, as well as how much pressure you hit it with, and again, going to the side or tipping it back on the toe of it. It'll give you what it is that you're trying to create inside of those petals to give it that depth. And there's other ones in here too, like little smaller ones. It's got a narrower tip. You can get into these tighter spots, and once you do that, let me see if I can even try to do it on here. Yeah, I didn't think that was gonna work too well, but with the different again, the what they call the thumbprint is normally made to be hit with just one, and depending on how hard you hit it, it'll give you a different type of design. And again, using these to create the shading that you need inside of the flowers. And then going around the outside using what they call a veiner. It's just at the type of angle that you use. And the spacing. And yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but just give you the idea of what that would look like. And then as you get it on the inside of the where the different types of leaves start to meet each other. You can use a mule foot, it's called. Like a little U-shaped, starts to go down. And then again, you can use your swivel knife to make these decorative cuts inside of the design. Now, I'm by no means a master of the swivel knife myself, but again, it takes a ton of practice, and it's one of those things, again, like I mentioned last week, the more you practice, the better you get. Just practice, practice, practice. Don't get discouraged by how imperfect it looks, because it's going to look imperfect the first few. No one does it right off the bat. If you do, more luck to you. But that's pretty much it for the design of the checkbook cover. What we covered last week was basically the assembly, and it's pretty much the same as the wallet that we made. It's a little simpler. You take your checkbook, once you got your design on the front, take the tape off like I did with the magnetic clip. This one you don't have to use tape on too much. I mean glue, but you would just line up the holes. It's not completely square, so once you take the tape off, you'll see what I mean. And then you'll put in the rest of it, and then with your needle and your lace, and the instructions on how to lace. With this, it gives you the instructions for what they call a double loop lace. That's another thing that we did last week. It'll show you how to do that and to assemble your checkbook. So with that, that's all I got. Thanks for listening, and I don't know if there's any questions, but
Is there anybody? No? Okay.
done.
Mhm.
They shut it off.